ECOM for over 10 years now. We're a recruitment business owned by InterQuest. Joe, my colleague, is one of our senior consultants here as well. He runs the Kubernetes meetup as well. The reason for this particular event and future events is we want to bring the community together and have conversations around tech and leadership in tech, which we hope will help build careers and futures for everyone here and people that you know. So I'm grateful to have Mike, Fame and Davy here to be part of the first conversation. I've worked with all of them previously, placed a couple of them previously, and they're really great guys, and hopefully the conversation will be useful for everyone in here. So I'll pass it over to you guys. Fame, Davy, Mike, do you want to introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about you guys? Fame, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I can start. Hey everyone, good to see you here. My name is Fame Razak. I guess I started my agency career in London back in 1999, gosh, a long time ago. Of 20 years in agencies across London, really. So, you know, I've done everything from big networks. I started at AKQA. I've been at Critical Mass, Wonderman, Digitas, and also some of the independents as well. So I was recently CTO and Logfolk for 5 years as well. But in January this year, I can see Rebecca Martin's on this call. I started Alina with Bex, my co-founder, and Rob, design co-founder. And that's basically to try and help 16 million, I think that's the number, women in the UK going through the menopause. Getting a diagnosis, an accurate diagnosis for menopause is probably a painful process, I hear. So we aim to use technology to help get a diagnosis correctly, like the first time around, and also support women going through that journey with kind of Eastern, Western therapeutic and recommendations as well. So right now, we started in January, pre-lockdown, and then we went into lockdown and we hired Rob. We've never met Rob. We interviewed him on Hangouts. We brought some doctors and some experts onto our panel, all via Hangouts. It was all good fun. We never met any of them in person yet. We hired some developers as well who are now working on our application and our mobile application, which is coming on strong. So we're weeks away into launch. So I've had a really fun, interesting journey and really pleased to be here and kind of talk to it with you guys as well.
Perfect, thanks. Mike?
Yeah, sure. My name's Mike Tempest. I'm currently a tech lead at Critical Mass here in London. So I'm mainly working currently with Mitsubishi and back in New York, Mellon. So my dev team that I work with, that I'm over, are kind of strewn out over Toronto, Costa Rica, Vietnam and Tokyo. So it's quite a time zone heavy sort of situation. In the past, I've worked from large corporations like Google and Apple, and also small startups. I did a startup called RefMe, where I was one of the first employees, and then we helped grow it out to 2 million users, 50 internal staff, and all of the stuff that goes with that. So scaling up dev teams, scaling up infrastructure systems, and going worldwide with the product as well, which also brought its own sort of problems as it goes. So yeah, nice to meet you all, and hopefully we can give you something useful.
Perfect. Davy?
Hey, thanks Hiren for inviting me. I really appreciate it. But hey everyone, my name's Davy. I've been working in tech for probably about 20 years now, and I've done most jobs in engineering in that time. Most things from front-end development to DBA to eventually CTO. I'm currently working at a place called iWalker as head of tech ops. So iWalker is a fintech scale-up. Our mission is to fund 1 million small businesses to help them thrive and give them the much-needed boost to the economy. More important than now than ever, really. So we've created one of what I think, anyway, is the most innovative loan platforms on the market. It's kind of loans done right, if you could think of it that way. We have multiple different loan products, but our largest, most popular one, the Flexi loan, allows you to do things like you get approved for a loan, but you don't have to actually take that money. You can leave it there as a safety net and draw down whenever you want. You don't get charged for paying off early. We can give you a decision in minutes. Like, I think the fastest decision we've given is like 3 minutes or something, which is insane. And it's a real challenge to the kind of traditional lenders who take a lot more time to do this kind of thing, and we're very much focused on small businesses, which the larger banks tend not to be. So I think I describe my role at iWalker as providing support and direction to the tech analytics and product team. I want to drive fast lead times, give high productivity and quality throughout the team. So I mostly spend my time improving and optimizing our processes and in sort of technical and non-technical ways. But yeah, looking forward to chat to everybody, and yeah, looking forward to your questions.
Perfect. Cool. So just a reminder, there is a chat function here. So if you guys do have any questions, then please do fire them across to Joe and myself. But I'll obviously start the questioning off initially. The one question that I did have for all of you guys is, why did you choose the career path that you've chosen? You've all become very senior people within the world of tech. Davy, your face is right in front of me, so I'll ask you first.
Why did I choose the career path? I guess I was always deeply into the engineering aspect of it, and I was always super keen on technology in general. But one of the main drivers, and it's not just the money, to move into that more senior kind of position is maybe a bit of a megalomaniac complex, but just to have that control to be able to make the decisions. So to make it better, to kind of make things how you want it, run things how I thought they should be done. So, and to do that, I always felt like I needed to be up further in the wider business and to make those decisions.
Do you prefer it over the hands-on role?
Yes, yeah, I do. I think it's a difficult one because they're very different. It isn't the same role, just with more responsibilities. It is a completely different role, and the job satisfaction aspect of it is so different from being a developer where you're focused on one thing, you craft it, you make it the most elegant, eloquent version of what it can possibly be, and then that's the output, and there's immense job satisfaction that comes with that. But then when you move into running a team or running a company and having everybody focus and move the same way, that kind of individual satisfaction is not there. You need to look at it from different places, and there's immense satisfaction from getting your company to achieve a particular goal or producing something from a team based, but you have to change your mindset and understand that. And yeah, I think now I do get way more job satisfaction from the leadership aspect of it.
Perfect. Michael, what made you go down the route of management?
I'm very similar to Davy, to be honest. I've always, well, for the past sort of 9 years or so, I've mainly been in kind of consulting roles or helping build stuff where you're trying to lead people in the right way anyway. So it always kind of made sense to try and make that progression up to be that person. But also for me, another factor is actually I really enjoy helping bringing the rest of the team up as well. So part of like mentoring your teams and putting processes in places that they can really evolve and be the best that they can be and kind of level up their own careers. And I get a lot of like worth from that as well. Like that's where I get a lot of satisfaction, is seeing people in my team thrive and like really enjoying what they're doing. But not only that, kind of pushing themselves to those next levels and reaching out to people. And, you know, that's quite a big factor for me of like why I want to move up, because I can see the processes that need to be in place to help that thrive. Absolutely.
Cool. Fine.
For me, well, I won't lie, I totally stumbled into coding and the world of software development. When I was at university, I was kind of following my parents' dreams, really, and doing a degree in business management and accounting. So, you know, I could have been an accountant had I listened and followed the path, but I totally fell into software engineering one evening coming home into my student house, and the guy in the room next to me was coding a game for one of his projects while I was out researching the question, should businesses be ethical? I didn't think that was quite fair, so I really got interested into, you know, gaming and how you create games and how is that even possible to make a career out of. And I totally fell in love with it. So it wasn't until my first job actually at a university where I was converting games from C to C++ in game startup in Nottingham that I met my first CTO, and totally inspired by everything that he was doing in his day-to-day role. You know, he was hands-on building hardware, selecting all the components in the computer. He knew everything, right down to kind of helping the developers fix bugs and suggest ways to optimize the code. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I want to do that. So that was my inspiration, really, to, you know, the reason why I wanted to get into an agency, kind of building software, and the reason why I wanted to get into management. I don't want to be like that guy. It's brilliant. Took me about 14 years to get there.
Was it worth it?
Definitely worth it, yeah.
So if you look back then, say you 15 years ago, you've got yourself in front of you, what would you say to yourself? What would you say, this is something that you should do now that will help you in the future? Yeah,
good one. It's more around setting goals, really, and your ambition. For me, I worked this out about 2 years ago when I completely fell out of love with what I was doing. You know, as CTO in an independent agency, global agency, you know, 5 offices around the world, traveling around a lot. I realized that actually what I hadn't done is set my goals for life after CTO. So I'd always set myself to get to a particular bar and wanted to be a CTO, and I kind of knew what that came with. Kind of knew. So I didn't really know. You don't really know when you get in, but kind of knew. But what I hadn't done is kind of set myself my goals and expectations for myself and what I actually want. You know, what do I need to be doing beyond CTO? What does life look like for me 5 years into a CTO role? All I'd done is plan to get to CTO, and once I got to CTO, I was like jumping around chasing projects and, you know, for the agency and doing stuff for the agency that didn't really marry up to me and what I wanted. So I would, you know, go back 14 years. I would say, you know, up your goals a little bit. Think about the broader vision. Like, once you get to CTO, what is it that you want out of life? You know, what's that work-life balance look like? Not just about the money. The money's always going to be great, right? It doesn't really matter. What kind of work do you want to be doing? Who do you want to be doing that work with? Who do you want to be helping? You know, how do you want to affect life, the community around you, and what's the legacy that you want to be leaving behind? Because you're in a position where you can leave a legacy, if you think about it. So that would be my advice for a younger me. Okay, perfect. Davy, what would you say to yourself?
Ooh, get a haircut. Mostly. I've had a series of. Are
you talking to me or?
Not at all. Never said anything. They were your words. So I guess, like, I would look at it as like, when you're a CTO, you're not necessarily an engineering leader. You're a leader of the business, and you need to act like that as well and think like that. So earlier on in my career, I'd be looking at me to to look at the bigger picture. Like, don't just focus on the task at hand. So if you're early on in your career, and you should probably look either side of where you're working right now. So not just on specifically the area that you're looking at. What's downstream? What's upstream? What other teams are going to be depending on what you're creating? That's the first step. So you're not just like a gun for hire, or you're not a hammer and Jira tickets or your nails kind of thing. Have an awareness of your of how your engineering decisions affect the business as a whole. And as soon as you start doing that, you put yourself in that mind context. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, thinking about business goals and like the customers that are potentially using what you're using is the biggest shift in mindset that you need to make to kind of level up, because it's literally not about the code you're writing. It's about who's going to use it and what kind of impact it's actually going to have on the business. That's massive. And the other thing for me is like learning how to say no. Like, when you're getting started, like, everyone is a yes man. Like, it's just a natural thing. You feel you have to say yes. And actually you'll get a lot more props if you learn to say no with, like, constructively though. Like, always come with a reason why. Maybe a differing opinion of like, okay, maybe that's not quite right. Let's have a look at this. You know, it's all about understanding business goals to then propose something better. sometimes budgets don't have that in mind, but it's definitely a big skill you need to have in your career, is saying no. And a lot of people are scared of it.
Yeah, I think Fame came up with the Chief Bullshit Officer name for this particular event, and I think that's part of the role is spotting when stuff isn't going to go the way that you want, when people are telling you, yes, this is going to work, and it's not going to work, and I think that's a big part of any sort of management position, isn't it?
Yeah, and it goes outside of tech as well. When I mentioned that to you guys, I was, you get that a lot from clients, and they will push stuff at you. They want things, of course they want things. They want a lot for their money, and sometimes you have to learn to say no to clients, or maybe it's a maybe. Yeah, it's not a we can do it right away. I used to work with someone whose first answer was yes we can, and we'd always end up having a scope that just continued to creep and creep. Costs will go up and up, but the delivery, they never change. Right? And I've also worked in an agency where there was a big poster on the wall that said say yes more than no.
Do you think it's it's more difficult to say no to clients or your stakeholders?
I think it's the way you go about it, personally. It's one of those saying no for as an abrupt thing is definitely the wrong way to go, but guiding them to a better solution is a much better way to go. One, if you look at it from an agency land, it can increase your revenue because you're building more trust. You're growing potentially what you're planning on building. They might not have realized that actually you've got a better solution for what they came to you with. But from a product team as well, it's massive. It really can help shape where the business is going and how it can evolve.
Yeah, I agree. Saying no and educating the client around why you said no and what they could potentially do wins you lots of big brownie points. You may not get what you want on this project, maybe a bit of a pain to get through, but it wins you brownie points, and the kind of what that brings later down the line is more projects, the less need for pitching and all that kind of stuff. It's just you build credit with your client.
Okay, Davy, you're managing quite a few developers at the moment. When you look within your business and the tech function, and you're overseeing such a large team, how do you know? What do you look for when it comes to bringing people up to be the next CTO or the next lead? There's a lot of people in this chat who will be at a junior to senior level that are looking to take that step up. What do they need to do to make themselves known to someone like yourself?
I guess it's not necessarily that I would look for a specific person or something like that. A lot of the time, these kind of positions come organically. People have interest in certain areas. If you focus on your interest and look at that, you'll become the domain expert in that area. It's always going to be the same for any kind of move in career progression. It's show initiative. It's you don't need to be vocal. You don't need to be outspoken. You don't need to be some sort of crazy rock star. You need to be able to back up your ideas. You need to be able to think at a level which is maybe not necessarily your focus. And as soon as you start noticing those things, that progression will come.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. What do you think the drawbacks are of your role? You guys have been doing it for a while now. You've obviously had to deal with a lot of pushback from clients and stakeholders and even developers that you're managing. What are the things, the pitfalls that people should be looking for?
If you're a CTO, it's great because this is your vision, this is your ideals, this is your team, this is kind of your ambition. But the negatives of that is it is your team, it's your ambition, it's your ideals. If they don't go correct, then it is your responsibility. You're accountable for that, which makes it actually quite a lonely job, to be fair, and stressful, obviously. Which I think it's why it's really important to have external mentors and a support network and people you can turn to kind of bounce those things off. But yeah, I guess it's down to the responsibility and the accountability, really. The buck does stop with you.
I kind of think also on top of that, it pushes you to hiring a team that can raise you. like, you don't know everything. That's one of the first things you need to realize is like, it isn't, yes, it's your idea, but people can make that idea even better. And the sooner you can kind of open yourself up to that, like, I think that's a big pro of it, actually, because it evolves you as a person.
I can't remember who said it, but someone did say, "Don't be the smartest person in the room." You want to have people around you who you can bounce off and obviously learn from as well.
Yeah.
Always hire people better than you.
You want to make yourself redundant, pretty much, right? You got to hire better people than you. I think that's one of the common mistakes. Is like, you know, as you go up the ranks, you lead developer, technical director, you do a lot yourself, which are kind of the low value tasks of a CTO or tech director. You shouldn't be doing things but for some reason you just can't pull yourself out. You're just always in it. So, you know, hiring, maybe it's because you just don't think your team are good enough, but you have to hire really good people and give them, you know, the freedom and trust them to do the job, really.
I 100% agree with that as well, because although I guess my motivations were always to kind of like do things right and to make the decisions and to run this company how it should be run. But the realities of it is, now I'm in that position, actually what I'm doing is trying to enable people to make those decisions for themselves, to work autonomously, to make decisions without me. So it's almost the flip side of my initial intention.
It's kind of like empowering the team, right?
Sorry, Joe, you got a bit of an echo there when you said that. What was it?
I was just saying it's kind of like empowering the team around you. I think we were talking about this in the initial conversation as well.
Yeah.
Make decisions without you.
Yeah. I guess some of the other cons from my perspective, cons, depends how you look at it. Once you get out of kind of, you're quite senior as CTO, you're not doing much hands-on coding, as you mentioned already, but there's lots of other things you need to learn that are not necessarily tech related, like HR. You know, you probably already, I don't like to say it, but, you know, fired people or gone through a redundancy process where you had to let people go. That's a painful thing to really learn how to do well, if there's such a thing. Also, you know, elements of finance, managing your budgets that you have for your departments, figuring out, you know, what to spend it on, how to keep everyone happy, and also just communication with clients, not necessarily just tech clients, because as CTO you get to meet, you know, people across the board in your client's company, from marketing folks to social media to accountants to, you know, all sorts of people, and you know, networking with those is really important. I know as developers we often don't like to break out of our developer networks, but that was one big one for me, actually. A big takeaway is like, always network, always connect with people who, you know, you meet within, you know, on your client side or, you know, agency partners. Those relationships can really serve you well in the future.
Yeah. I'd say that can also be a pro and a con, like, because you do, as a CTO, you have to be on all the time. I mean, it's when you're outside of work, even if you're talking to people, there's sometimes something that comes up that you're like, oh, I best kind of keep this person like close to me and that sort of thing.
It's really interesting as I look through my LinkedIn now, you know, people I worked with in 1999. Back then, you know, I was a developer and I was working with, let's say, an account manager. That account manager now, 15 years later, 20 years later, is head of digital at, you know, let's say Disney. I know someone who's really senior now at head of Disney at that level, and that's a really great in, right? If I've got a product or I've created a startup and I want to go and get in contact with that person, I already know them. We already have a history. It's straight in basically to a meeting. So that's, you know, that's one advantage of connecting like that. It's a pro and a con.
Yeah, it kind of also leads on to when you're in your career, growing as a person and leaving companies, do it in an amicable way, because the last thing you want to do is leave a bad impression, because that does travel. It's one of, tech is quite even though it's such a big thing, it's quite a small thing when you get into senior positions.
It's very incestuous. I mean, I've had conversations where people are like, oh, you know this person? Oh, yeah, I placed this person there. And everyone seems to know each other in a roundabout way. I mean, Michael, you're working at Fame's old company and sort of in the mantra of his old role as well. So,
yeah, it's definitely a massive thing. And just that natural, like, it's okay to be a nice guy. Like, it's one of those frowned upon things in business as well, is that you shouldn't be a nice person and stuff like that to get where you want to be. But actually, Like, if you want to level up well, keep your contacts close, and just do little things here and there that actually help people.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. As well, like, networking is a bit of, like, almost seems like a dirty word. It's a bit smarmy. It's a bit sort of political. And actually, if you can find your way how you want to do it, like Mike said, like, if you help someone, genuinely help them and give them advice and give them good advice, it's way more useful. You get a far better connection than just being like, hey, here's my business card, I'll buy you a drink, kind of thing. Yeah.
Don't just add people on LinkedIn, like, send a message. Like,
that's not how I'm meant to be doing recruitment then, no?
Yeah.
But in terms of the CTO or a tech lead function, what I know it changes from business to business, but is it a linear path? What should people look out for?
It's definitely not. Well, it was definitely not a linear path for me.
Yeah.
Like, just, I guess it's exploiting opportunities. Anything that comes your way, have a go. If it is something that's like asked of you, which might not necessarily be within your role, try it out, see if it works, see if you can do it. It'll lead to weird and wonderful places. Like, I went on a very weird career path from being an application Windows C developer to being a graphic designer to being a back-end developer to running some startups and then going back to being a front-end freelancer. It's like really kind of crazy path.
yeah,
You learned a lot from it, didn't you?
I think the more you know, the better you can be in a higher up position. Like, it's so, like, for myself, I kind of similar. Like, I love bouncing around different things. I've got lots of interests. So, like, I've run a cycling brand as a side passion where I do all the designing and put all the stuff out.
You've got a great Instagram page as well.
Yeah, and it's just understanding marketing as a developer is actually a massive pro to get in anywhere. It's especially if you're trying to move up into more managerial roles. Like, marketing, having any knowledge on it really helps from my perspective. Even if it's your own products, right? Like, you can build the thing, but no one's going to come and use it if you don't know how to put it somewhere. And that's a massive.
That's really true. It's really true. It's something I saw inside agencies. I've always been in agencies, and my path has been quite linear from developer all the way up to tech director to CTO. I do agree. You need to be. For me, it was what really helped was just that length of time. So I've experienced practically every project going, and I know what's coming. As soon as a client talks about a project, you just instinctively know what is needed, what the problems are going to be, how long it's going to take, and in terms of cost, you can snap that up pretty quickly on a napkin, right, and be quite accurate. But something interesting that you just reminded me of, like in agency life, it's you're always designing products for clients, but the people working on those projects are from UX to design to coders. They don't do anything outside of that role in terms of a marketing capacity. They don't have their own products. They don't do any e-commerce. They don't do ads and drive traffic to a website, SEO, anything like that. So something that hit me was like, well, this is quite weird. How is it that clients can pay us quite lots of money to do marketing when people who are actually working on the product or project aren't doing marketing for themselves? It's something.
Got some good business development people. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a whole business development model. It was great.
Frank, you mentioned agencies a couple of times. Someone just messaged in the group chat asking what you mean by agency.
Oh, as a creative agency. So creative agencies help brands. So I've worked with Nike, Microsoft, Xbox, Sainsbury's, everybody with their social media, their microsites, products. So Nike, we did apps, fitness training apps for Nike. At Analog Folk, we developed the Nando's home delivery service.
Thank you for that.
It's a wide range of... Sorry?
I said thanks for that.
Was that someone thanking us for that? Yeah. You're welcome. So as an agency, when I say agency, I'm talking about creative agencies whose expertise is social, digital marketing. So looking at, social networks like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and helping brands figure out which social channels they should be on and what they should be doing on them.
Brilliant. All right, thanks for clarifying that.
Cool. If anyone else does have any questions, Joe is on hand to pass those over to the rest of the guys. Just on the advertising agency side of things, I mean, ECOM was traditionally built on ad agencies, which is why these three guys have been chosen to be part of that conversation. But yeah, the ad scene has been instrumental in changing social media and advertising, and obviously anything else to do with the digital side of things for a number of years now. Going back to the people that are in this group, I always look at developers and the kind of way that they work and the kind of mentality. There is a split between developers, though. Those that are quite reserved, the ones that like to get their headphones on and code, and then those that are very out there. They like having opinions, they like to learn new things and have conversations. Do you think it's only for the people that have got that out there personality that can be the tech leaders of today? Or do you think those sort of less open might not be the word.
More introverted.
Introverted, that's what I literally wrote introverted down. I couldn't get that out of my mouth. Do you think they have a chance of being those senior tech leaders as well?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would
agree.
I would say yeah. There's room in this world for everyone.
I think a lot of it just comes down to learning how to put your opinion across in a way that works for you. It doesn't matter how, sometimes the loudest people actually put the backs up of most people in the room because of how they put it across. Yeah. Whereas you can be loud but put it across in a good way, or you can be loud and put it across in a way that annoys everyone in the room. And that's, as it is. And the same goes for being quiet. It's fine to be quiet, but if your one nugget of truth is amazing, you'll always be known for it.
There's someone in the group who's just commented, Chris Wilmot, saying he successfully did this with an introverted developer who hated clients. So can be done. On what we're talking about here, actually, Davey, earlier on you mentioned that you said bigger picture. So I've written bigger picture down. Was that when you was an engineer, even before you got into a leadership role, you always had a kind of bigger picture mindset, and then that's obviously sort of gravitated you towards a leadership role because of that mindset from early?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously, when you start off on your career, your area of influence is smaller, is just narrower in general. And the longer, more experience you get, you take on that wider area. But even at the start, when you're this is the task that you've been given, might be very narrow. You shouldn't just do it blindly. If this is your task, it's hey, do it this way. If you actually don't agree with it, or basically find out why you're doing that task. And I think that is enough of that sort of first steps to think about the bigger picture, think about what you're doing, think about how your work affects the team. If you don't have that wide sphere of influence, if you can just see who is your particular stakeholder. It might be the team leader, it might be another senior developer you're working for who's give you the work. Just have that communication, have that conversation, ask why we do this, what's it to achieve. And as soon as you find that out, then you can make the decision if you should or shouldn't do it. I think that's what I was trying to get to from the bigger picture thinking.
Another simple way of doing it is just think about how you can measure success of what you're doing. And that takes you out of the mindset of code. That's an easy switch that quite a lot of people, as soon as you start to do it, you'll see the benefits, and it just gets you thinking differently. Yeah,
it's Imran Arshad commented saying leaders act personally responsible for even the smallest of tasks, and obviously what you said there, David and Mike, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mike there as well. Be good at painting that picture of why you've done something. Use data to prove your point as opposed to just your opinion, because then you can't really argue with a data point. Mm-hmm. It becomes less subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So another part of being the most senior person within the team is building a team. How difficult can that be when, I mean, you guys have worked in various sized businesses. Obviously, when you're in a startup, you ideally want to bring in people your mates who you can do the job. But when you're going from startup to scale up or joining a behemoth like a WPP agency, then it's not going to be a case of who it's going to be. We need to get bums on seats. How difficult can that be, and how do you go about it?
It's the three P's, isn't it? Sorry.
But calling Hiren.
Great answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's just, it's one of those things. You kind of have to weigh up the goal of what you're hiring. Like, is it a short-term goal or is it a long-term goal? And that kind of changes your scope on what you're hiring. One thing I'd say is don't look at university degrees as the answer. Like, it's a massive, for me, something I've just historically seen is like people instantly put that, oh, you need a computer science degree. You definitely don't. I've got a music degree. It's one of those, it's about the person, how they've learned. Like, our whole scene has been created from people who've kind of self-taught or shared their knowledge. So don't always think in a computer science manner's just going to get you a better person. It definitely isn't. That's one of mine, like, no's to growing your team.
You mean my 2-2 from Huddersfield University is not impressive?
I actually went to Huddersfield Uni.
Oh shit!
Yeah. I didn't need technology, so
Wow.
yeah, that's bizarre.
We were in the same class.
We should probably definitely know each other.
Yeah, we've probably crossed paths going to Camel Club or something. But anyway.
Sorry, just some flashbacks.
Yeah.
To that point though, it's very much like building teams is great and you can look at all the different ways to pull it together, but like, yeah, don't look at university degrees. Have that diversity of thought within the team. I think that's more important than having like particular skill sets. Don't hire for the same people. You don't want two of the same person. You want someone to complement someone else. Someone would be fantastic in a certain area, but you really want more communication. So you hire a great communicator, or you hire someone who's really strong in the back end, that kind of thing. So you want your roles to complement each other, but you want that diversity of thought more than anything. You want people who come at problems from a completely different angle. And I think that's been my most successful thing when trying to build teams, is get that complementary thinking.
That also goes back to your point about like knowledge of different things, right? Like people's differing like hobbies and things like that all plays into that, because you'll have someone that goes home and woodworks that thinks about a problem in a different way, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, my role at Digitas was came out the random, really. I had a Microsoft background and they were hiring for a Java stack. I was like, I'm never going to get this role. There's no point going for the interview, and I got the job. It was crazy. That's obviously their hiring technique. But I was just going to say, it's down to attitude. Skills can be learnt, but attitude, that is the key thing that you want to hire for. Be curious, be nice is a really important thing. That I think for me, attitude is what I always look for in a developer, whether they're keen, ambitious, but they want to help out, want to get stuck in and do some good stuff.
Yeah, cool. So the other question that I've got is when you do get to your level, you're not as hands-on on the code as the developers. You don't know the intricacies of Angular 1, 2, and all the nooks and crannies of React. So how do you keep abreast of the stuff that you need to? Is it going to meetups? Is it reading the BBC Tech page? Or what do you do to keep abreast of everything that you need to know?
The thing is just knowing what you need to know.
Yeah, knowing what you need to know.
Is it worth you knowing the latest addition to React? Is it worth you knowing the difference between Angular 1 and 2?
Yeah.
That's a good exercise to do before you go down the route of actually trying to find this information.
Yeah. And that's quite difficult from an agency. If you're in creative agencies, you work with lots of different client stacks. So it's, one might be using React, someone might be using Vue on a different project, and sometimes these things are determined by clients, not by you. Clients own IT and tech stacks, determine what you need to use. So you need to also hire for those tech stacks as well. So you have various people in your teams with different skill sets. So, like David says, like, do you even need to learn it? One thing I used to do was just stick to one thing that I found interesting. So for a little while, I was playing with Arduino. I love Internet of Things, and I was playing with that, just skinning myself up. That was always fun to talk around with clients. Always got interest. But yeah, meetups, whenever you want to go hang out and see what's going on to get like a 10,000 feet view really worked well for me.
Also hire people you trust. Like it's all about someone in your team will have knowledge, and as long as you trust that person, then like people naturally learn different things and are interested in different things. So a lot of it will actually come from listening to people who you work with or peers or that sort of thing. And then there's that big Google when you don't know something and you need to know quickly.
Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
I think as well, like conceptually, like you should have a good understanding of every aspect of your business from start to finish. But that doesn't at all mean that you need to be the person who can go in and write that code, or you can create that infrastructure. If you understand the concepts and have enough detail that you need, I guess that then opens up the question of which areas you need to focus on. If there is an area of your business that you don't understand from a conceptual level, how end-to-end it works, then you need to go down that route and do a bit of learning in that area.
Yeah. Know enough to call bullshit, basically. Sorry.
Yeah. I think that's a good link back to the topic.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got any more questions, I'm almost done with mine. If there is any questions, please do pop them in the chat. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about is the gender bias that technology has. So there is a few females in this conversation right now, and when I was thinking about who we want to be part of the panel, not just for this but for future events, I couldn't actually think of many female technology leaders that I've spoken to over the years. And I think inherently within advertising agencies, there's been an assumption that most of the people within the leadership function will be men. I think I've maybe had a handful of technical directors or tech leads interview for me before, but never actually get the roles. What do you think needs to change within the industry to make sure that females do have an equal chance to get those roles?
Schools. Schools,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. I had a conversation with my brother about 4 years ago around my niece, and school apparently told her that she was really good with computers and maybe she should look at doing GCSEs and A-levels. And he gave me kind of the syllabus of what they'll be learning, and I was shocked. So literally, modern day IT curriculum still revolves around networking, spreadsheets, and Word, really basic stuff. I was absolutely shocked, and it was then it dawned on me that it's still terribly messed up in schools. They're not teaching, like I said before, software engineering, coding skills. I know we have things like STEM, which are kind of breaking into schools, but it's still not. It's kind of after school, education and all that kind of stuff that parents don't seem to be really getting them excited about. I think parents these days are huge gamers, so maybe it would change, and they might want to look into creating games and going down that route. But I think it needs to start with schools. Really, it's slowly getting there. But also from that opinion, not just girls, women, also women from a BAME background. There really isn't a lot of Indian, Pakistani, British-born women coming through. It's a shame.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that goes back to modern culture. It's not even just tech-related, right? Like inequality is everywhere, and I think as a whole we have to do better. And if we can start to see it happening in sport and stuff like that, in modern culture that everyone sees daily, then that will naturally change things. And then it's also when you're hiring, just actually be thoughtful on what you're hiring. Like you shouldn't just assume that only men are going to apply for something. And that's the massive thing. And being racially diverse is also another thing that needs to be really thought about. As a company, you should be looking at your profile as a company and understanding like where your holes are.
It's interesting what you say about the hiring there. We did a bit of a study at Analog Folk around job descriptions and terminology and words that people use in job descriptions that put off women. So things like, JavaScript wizard or JavaScript ninja, women don't really respond well to those. They don't consider themselves to be ninjas or, wizards or unicorns, right? So we embarked on an exercise of stripping that crap out and just keeping it really basic and, easy to understand. So no wizards, no ninjas allowed.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen job specs online previously where he will be working on this and he will be managing this many people. It's like, come on, you can't put that in this day and age. Davy, anything else on your side?
It's back to the diversity of thought. Diversity of thought comes back from diversity of background, from personal challenges you've had. I feel that a panel of 5 men don't really have a good thing to say about this, but that's exactly the problem. If you have lots of different diversity in your company, you attract more diversity as well. It's
It's a hot topic. I've had people coming through saying that they completely agree with this, and Chris again is saying obviously there's a huge gender role sort of stereotyping from having someone who's got a 3 and a 7-year-old in the toy shop and stuff you see on the shelf. So it goes back to what you were saying, Fane, in terms of starting early at school, even younger than that, sort of the whole sort of gender split and preference, I guess, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure whether
it's
those
like cultural as well. I think. Sorry, mate. I was going to say it's like a little bit culture as well. Like in my, ethnic background in my community, like women or even some of the, the kids don't think about jobs in software engineering. It's just not the thing to do. So that needs to change.
I think I just noticed that I think it's Premaletha. Have I said your name correctly there? I think you've got a question. She's raising her hand.
No, I was going to offer my insight as Davy was mentioning that it will be good to hear from the diversity thought as a female that you are all discussing about female representation in here. And I'm a female, so I thought that why not join the conversation. I am a technology person. I am a DevOps coach, and I have been in this technology field for quite some time, and I have not become a CTO or anyone like one of you. Nothing bad against you, but that is the fact in front of you. Just in the last role, I was working with somebody, and he's a CTO now. It's sometimes we ourselves don't put ourselves forward for such roles. We do not think that we are quite ready, we are quite eligible to become CTOs. I keep going in the same kind of role for over 10 years now. Obviously not all of them in the same level, but slightly different. We don't immediately push ourselves forward because we do not believe, not only because we do not see the representation, but also the other side assumptions that they do not think that we are quite ready. Whenever we apply, we are asked to provide millions of proof of having done the same role. There is no, even when we show the proof, there is no, people do not see that that's what we need in a leadership. That's the kind of person we need to have in the leadership. So after a few attempts, even with so much excitement or so much pushing ourselves and trying for 1 or 2, and after sometimes you give up and you just keep going back to the regular grind and then keep accepting what the society allows you to do. So it's a kind of this side and that side, both sides as well. So if you feel there is something I can suggest, that there was somebody helped me in my last role. They pulled me up. So I use that to pull someone else up. So whenever you get the opportunity, please pull someone up. Yeah. Use your privilege to help someone you see. And that's the way things can change. Whenever possible, when you have reached, when you feel that I got good enough happiness, I can give something to somebody. Like, it's just, if you equate to when you are going through the underground stations, when you see somebody pushing a pram, helping them to go up the stairs, if you use the same analogy, you think that you may be holding a bag, you may be just walking up, but you are currently not pushing a pram. Maybe you can help somebody. Even if you have an additional baggage, if you can manage, help somebody. In the same way, if you can think in the roles that if you can pull someone up, even if they think they are not quite ready, if you can tell them, don't worry, you are ready. I will help you in here. I will pull you up there. At the same time, just one little thought, just while caring about them, care a little bit more in a way that it doesn't sound condescending towards the other person. Just, yeah.
I think that's a really good point. And doing stuff that isn't going to reap benefits for you solely, doing something, being empathetic is a key part of being a manager and a senior person, that you want these people to thrive and you want them to be the best person they can be, because eventually it will help the business become the best business they can be as well.
Yeah. I think it also brings it back to if we want the industry to change, men have to step up to actually change the game and bring women into those roles and stop this whole disparity. Like, it just has to happen. And if it's the case that, we want it to change, we have to actually commit to that and, give ourselves to that process. We can't just sit around and go, it's not on, we have to be a part of it.
Thank you.
I just wondered if you'd ever had, have you ever had a woman as a line manager?
So I'm actually lucky in the sense that most of my bosses are actually women. In Critical Mass, our CEO is a woman. My general manager is a woman. So I'm quite lucky in that sense with my current role. But in the past, definitely not. It's one of those things that has happened.
No, same for me. I don't think I've actually ever had a woman as a line manager as well. So that is also an issue. We need somebody there to inspire people and, like I said, pull them up when they need it.
Yeah, I think there is a number of very prominent females within leadership functions within tech companies now. I think of Monzo. Name skips my head at the moment, but it seems like people have understood that the diversity and gender bias needs to be addressed, and there is a push in the right direction, but it's baby steps at the moment, and it needs to get to the stage where the conversation doesn't need to be had anymore, because it is what it is, and that's the way that it's going to be moving forward. I'm conscious of the time at the moment. I know, Fame, you did mention that you've got 2 o'clock that you've got to jump on. Is there any other final questions on there, Joe?
Yeah, there's a couple, mate, so I guess we'll shoot through quickly. One from Vilius. With tech evolving so quickly, like new frameworks and things, how do you keep on top of all of that?
I can kind of, so for me personally is don't switch to it too quickly. Understand what's going on. Is it actually the right solution? Like, tech frameworks evolve and a lot of people jump about and go, oh, this is the best, this is the best. But a lot of the time they all do very similar things, and it's actually understanding at a root level of what you're building, but also the support available for it. If you're building a product that you're expecting to last for 10 years, is the community that you're using the technology with going to be there in 10 years' time? That's another big thing.
How many issues has it got on GitHub?
Yeah.
The more issues, the better.
Yeah.
The more issues means more people are using it.
That's it. And also always look at, like, when it was last committed to as a thing. The amount of times I've seen people using stuff that hasn't been committed to for over a year, like, a year is a very long time in tech. Like, you need people constantly committing to things.
Yeah.
Have a framework as well. Understand how you can evaluate new tools, new pieces of software. They're always going to come. You can't spend the time to go in, do tutorials, work out, see if it's fit for the purpose. Have some key indicators like what Mike's just said, a lot of those things. Have those across the board and have a way to define if you should switch technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of it comes down to also understanding the technology that it's built upon for frameworks. So you've got React, you've got Angular, you've got Vue, but if you know JavaScript, you can work in any of those. Like that's the big thing people miss these days. Same with like how front end technology has changed so much that it's actually now more about being just a JavaScript developer, and people have lost the way on understanding the CSS side of it, or like creating actual user experiences, which is what you're doing. I think, yes, frameworks come out here and there all the time, but like be just very mindful of where it's come from as well.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for that. Question from Rebecca Ralston. So she says that all of you guys seem to have worked in all different sizes of companies. So do you think, in your opinion, there's more opportunity to learn or gain leadership positions in startups over big name, sort of longer running companies?
I think you need to be careful as well on the definition of a CTO around this as well, because you can be called a CTO in a two-person startup where you're the engineer, you're the developer, you're the marketing person, you're fame. Or you can be the CTO of a massive company where you have to be completely hands-off. You manage 100 different engineers at all sizes. I hate to be the one who says the answer depends, but you do get completely different skills from different places. Like if you're in a startup, you'll never understand how to manage a team of 100 developers. You'll only get that in a kind of narrow margin of like a big sort of scale up. You'll never understand what it's like to work in a company of 50,000 people unless you're there, and the challenges that come with that.
Yeah, coming from big teams, you know, I've had the luxury of learning on the job. You know, that time to learn being built into a project, as well as even downtime when we haven't got projects. You know, in the summer months, life in an agency is pretty quiet, so there's lots of learning time, hands down. You know, learn whatever you want, whatever is coming up, evaluate new frameworks. So we've always experienced that in agencies. Being in a startup now, like having created our own startup of 3 people, and you know, being called a CTO is not really the role. I mean, it's more hands-on. I wouldn't like to be in that position trying to learn, because we've got to build a product really quickly and try and make some money on this thing. So it's I would say from my experience being in an agency, you'd have that ability, and as a CTO in an agency, I'd want to give that to my team, make sure that they have time to learn the tools, you know, best practices, and even client environments. They're all different, so you want to give them time. So from my perspective, agencies was really good for that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what you're trying to learn, basically. If you're trying to, you know, upgrade your software experience, then that can be learned in either role. If you're trying to like widen your career as a like general knowledge thing, then definitely from a startup perspective, you just have to wear many hats if you're joining early on. Like that's just the nature of being in a startup, is you have to think about things differently. So yeah, it just comes back to what you're trying to learn, and then the environment that you're going in. So if you're in a bigger company, ensure that they have that as a part of what they strive to with their team, like to bring you up as a person.
Yeah.
And take advantage of the fact that careers in tech tend not to stay in the same place all the time. Even if you're doing the exact same job on the exact same stack with almost identical skills required, at a different place you will learn so much more just by the processes in place in that company, just by the scale, the size, all that kind of thing. So moving about is just a great way to continue to learn, even if you're not necessarily changing technology.
Nice one. Okay, guys, well, look, like Hiren said, I'm conscious of the time. There are a few more questions, but if it's all right with you 3, what I'll do is in the meetup group, I'll just copy and paste the questions from the people in there, because some of them have actually dropped off who asked as well. So I'll ask them in there, and then you can come back on the meetup.com page and just answer there if you're all right with that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm happy to stick around if anyone has any questions after this as well.
Okay.
Yeah, or if you want to reach out on LinkedIn or anything, like just feel free.
Perfect. We'll post your LinkedIn links for you three guys on the meetup chat. If anyone does want to stick around and ask Davy or anyone else who's sticking around questions, then please do. Fame, I know you've got to jump on another call right now, I think.
It's been cancelled, so I've got 10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm going to stay for a bit longer if we want to try and get through it now.
Okay. Joe, do you want to ask the questions even though those people have dropped off?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
If people have dropped off, I want to say a big thanks to Joe and Hiren for organising this. I really appreciate it. So,
that's fine.
Yeah,
great
thanks.
panel.
Good to have you here. I've actually got to get my charger because my laptop's about to die. I'll be back in a second, but I'll leave it with Joe.
One of the questions, guys, from Jitesh, who is unfortunate to drop off, was: do you see the CTO role splitting? So in some ways, it's already happening. So, Chief Information Officer, Chief Digital, Chief InfoSec.
Yeah, I was like Chief InfoSec or Chief IT, call it what you want, and CTO at Analog Folk, which is quite interesting because for quite a while I had to really get my head under what is IT security at that level, where you're trying to make sure you're compliant globally across 5 different offices, so you can work with clients like Nike or HSBC, banks, which is quite fun. But coming from a tech background, that was quite interesting. So the smaller you are, of course it does. It goes across quite a few. But I guess as you get bigger, you yourself can bring those people in. I brought in a head of IT who then started to look after the 5 offices and the IT, and I sort of slowly got myself out of that. So yeah, it certainly does. But it's up to you and the agency that you're working with or in, and you're having a say, right? That's one of the nice things about CTO. You can, I was on the board. I could actually plan with the rest of the board when I wanted to bring in these people, so I could step back out. So there's certainly an opportunity to kind of go in and learn IT, InfoSec, data, and things like that, but then also plan to get yourself out at some point.
I think that's a great point, actually, is that it's understanding your holes as well. Yes, you're a CTO, but if you don't understand a certain part of your role as well as the others, then there's no harm in bringing someone into that position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice one.
I think it's like as the industry matures as well. It's like when I started my career, there was one job called web designer, and that web designer did everything from setting up the database to writing the markup to actually working in Photoshop and creating the design. And then that slowly split into all the different disciplines. I think as the industry matures. Yeah, IT guy.
Yeah.
Get in touch.
I think it'll naturally just.
Cool. Thank you for that, guys. Let me just scroll to another one. Again, this was actually from Jitesh. It's a shame he's had to jump off. So here we go. Could be beneficial to a number of other people in the group, actually. So as CTO, there are lots to invest in terms of tech perspective and engineers as well. Too many good ideas coming at him all at once. So how do you decide which ones to move forward with?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, really. I suppose my way would be actually look at it more from like the business perspective of those ideas. Like that's the only way you can really split it apart is what's going to bring the most business value out of doing these things, and then that's how you structure it. Obviously, there's time constraint as well. Like something could be an amazing idea that takes 2 weeks. Something could be an amazing idea that takes 2 years. Like that's another way of doing things.
Yeah.
Having that deep understanding of the mission of the company is so important as a CTO. You have a deep understanding of the mission, and then you steer clear of anything that undermines that. Like if it doesn't directly help or contribute to that mission, don't do it. Maybe that will help weed out some of the different opinions and directions you could go in.
Yeah, it's the shiny objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Interesting question, actually. So when you're stepping into a C-level role, did you have to change much of the language that you used, depending on who you were talking to? So they've mentioned here, talking to CEO, CFO, CMO is different to talking to sort of a techie or an engineer. So how did the sort of language change?
Yeah, You
I had to stop swearing as much.
you do have to stop swearing for sure. And yeah, with CMOs and CFOs, they don't get tech. You have to drop the tech terminology. So you've got to be really good from quite early on to be able to explain tech concepts to non-techies. Even if you're at lead developer level, somewhere there, you've got to be able to work with your colleagues already from that far back and have that skill. You certainly learn it, and it comes over time, but you dumb it down. And one really good thing that you could do, and a skill that you should all learn, is storytelling. I think the guys were talking about your developers, the good developers that you hire really explain to you what problems are and how they've solved it. That to me is a story, right? A reason why we did something. And I can play that back to a CMO and say, for these clients over here who are exactly like you in your sector, we had this project and we had this problem that came up, and and I'm able to explain it that way because it came right back from the developer who explained it to me in a way that I could actually understand. Because you've got to remember, as CTOs, you're like Hiren said, I have no idea React Native, fundamentals of core problems, how they work. Developers need to explain that to me in a way that I can understand, and it's not techie. But then I can explain that to clients using storytelling, and storytelling really, works really nicely with clients. They get it. They can visualize problems, and when you're telling them about a problem that you had on a client who's just like them, it's kind of like social proof. It's like, yeah, we've done it for your competitor, and here's how we did it, and they understand it. Then they're able to take that away. An example of where that happened to me was, the output of that conversation was working with a global bank and actually creating their global mobile banking app, which generated 2 million in revenue for about 8 months for us, a whole new office right across the road. So it was conversations like that if you can just extract yourself out of the tech and develop your storytelling capability that is not based around tech terminology, it will really serve you well.
Yeah. It also really helps on that promotion trail as well. Like, if you can explain to someone in your team that isn't tech what you're doing and the value behind it for the business, then you're just going to elevate yourself really quickly. Yeah.
And in some of those meetings as well, you're with CMOs, you're with like marketing people, even junior marketing people who don't get it. And you're often the person that your colleague, so new biz person or head of marketing in your agency or in your product company, they're looking on you to tell a story. So you've got to really be able to pick that up and get across that shyness and tell that story and really help out and sell it.
Nice one. Okay, thanks for that, guys. Question from Chris Wilmot, who I believe is still in the group actually. It goes back to your earlier point, Fame, about production teams not actually doing any sort of business focused work. Often they're not allowed to, and they're siloed in place. So I think his question is, should we see more cross-discipline activity in agencies from production teams who never normally see anything client side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it should be encouraged. I've worked in agencies where we've tried to put a few things like that in place. A critical mass. We put together a club called Atelier, where it was kind of innovation based. Just not even solving business problems. It's like, what do you guys want to do with some cool tech? You've got an opportunity, come up with a problem and some cool tech and make stuff. And then just prototype it, demo it. Maybe the skills that you learn will be applied to a project, but it was more around relationship building across different departments and different teams, so you get over those silos. So that's something that we did there. But analog folk, we've done things I'm sure you guys have done. It's like hack clubs, where we've opened that up as well to people outside of the agency or the company. We set up a meetup page and invite people to a kind of a hackathon. So that really helps too. Absolutely, that's part and parcel of how you break down silos.
I think there was an agency we were working with a while back who said in their job specs, 20% of your time will be doing stuff that's not related to the actual main core function of your role. And another agency basically used to sell those products that were made in that 20% of the time to generate extra revenue as well. So there is opportunities there depending on the kind of companies you want to work for.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the product side as well, as opposed to directly for agencies, I'm a big proponent of getting developers to answer support tickets. So direct support tickets that come from customers. There's no better way to understand the user's frustrations than to see that.
I love that.
That's super good.
Yeah.
We actually
Not all the
did the
time.
same thing. For me, our whole dev team, every week it would change who was on support, but it just made them understand the pitfalls of what they were creating.
A lot of sick days on those days, right?
The other thing I was going to say on that side of things was that getting developers to sit in on like UX talks or UX sessions where you're actually doing a user experience test on your product or team. Get your developers to sit in. Those things will instantly bring them up.
Yeah, at Critical Mass, I'm not sure if you still have them. They have the brown bags, which are kind of the lunchtime sessions, and then they have like the town halls, which are really good.
Yeah, we still have town halls. Brown bags has stopped at the moment. I mean, to be honest, I've never actually stepped foot in the office other than my interview. I started just before lockdown. Yeah.
Brilliant. So Premalatha has actually asked a question here, and so Premalatha, I mean, do expand on it if you wish, but I'll ask it for you here just because it's in the chat. Has anyone heard of reverse mentorship, and would there be any interest in that kind of experience? So Premalatha, feel free to expand on that.
This is about mentoring women and reverse mentoring women, mentoring men in helping bringing female leadership to the table. Have we heard about that? Would people be interested in that? My first question was about how would you be interested in mentoring women to bring them up, and also would you be interested in mentoring children and young coders so that the future gets little bit better advantage than what we see today. So the second question was about, have you heard about reverse mentorship? Would you be interested in that kind of experience?
Definitely. There's a company called the Hustle Crew, run by a woman called Abadasi, who does exactly that. Has mentorship from different diverse groups and puts them into that position of mentoring from a tech leadership point of view. At iWalker specifically, we do this as part of our quarterly reviews as well. So we have reverse mentorship from everyone within the team as well, which is not necessarily specifically to just having women being mentoring men and things like that, but it's on a similar vein. I am very interested in it. If you have any recommendations, I'd highly
what did you say
to get involved.
Group was called? The Hustle Crew?
Hustle Crew is the name of the company, yeah.
Hustle Crew.
Yeah, I just agree. I'm very interested as a company, Critical Mass, in the process of signing up with lots of different mentorship groups to try and actually start that process of us getting more involved in that. From a personal level, I've mentored lots of different people from different backgrounds, and it's something that actually drives me as a person, like seeing those people grow. So yeah, definitely interested in hearing more.
I've never heard of it, but would be interested.
Davy's just actually sent me in a private message the Hustle Crew link. So what I can do is post that on our meetup.com group community on there, so then everyone can see even the people that have signed off as well. So thanks, Davy. Appreciate that.
No worries.
There was one final question that's literally just come through from Lana. Do you have to be a software engineer to be a CTO? It's a good question.
Ooh. I think it depends on the company. So there's some places where you can work and you can be an engineering manager and not be a software engineer or have that background at all. But if the culture of the company is maybe super engineering focused or analytics focused, there's not always going to be a tension. It's not impossible, but I think it does help because you need to you need to understand the frustrations of the people who work for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't truly know what those frustrations are, it's very difficult to fix them. So it's not really a clean cut answer. It's, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a harder route. I think you still have to understand technology and not necessarily at a code level, but like the principles of what you're trying to achieve in different roles. Just because from a managerial perspective, it's going to be a lot harder to relate and empathize with people of what they're actually doing.
I think, Davey, you mentioned something earlier on this point actually about focusing on your interest and becoming a domain expert, you know, like get there organically. I think that ties in quite nicely with that question, whether it's software engineering, whether it's, you know, another part of the business that isn't software tech related. As long as you're an expert and you can show you're an expert depending on what sector you're in, I think then you've got a good argument to say why you should be in the leadership role.
100%. It's something I'm doing at iWalker at the moment. We have a team of delivery managers, and there's a few of the delivery managers who work on a specific team, and they're just through their role of kind of getting the momentum of the team, making sure everyone's on track, allocating kind of tickets and things. They become domain experts in that specific area. So all of a sudden they become way more valuable than a software engineer in a different team, because they know every aspect of the team that they're working in. I don't know if that quite answers the question, but it makes it really, really valuable for those people to be tech savvy to a level where I normally try and describe it as like, can you draw a diagram of the data flow, for example? Can you see where the data starts, what happens to it, and then what teams depend on you? If you have that level of technical expertise, you can definitely empathize with the engineers within that team without necessarily having to be a software engineer.
Yeah. Nice one.
I think coming back to you need to have that background. I mean, I've been hiring these people for a number of years, and I've seen CTOs within big organizations that have never touched a line of code before. You see chief security officers who don't really come from that background. But I mean, when they first started, when they graduated, there was no such thing as security within software. So how could they have made their way to that position? So I think it's like you guys said, it depends on the company. It depends on the kind of route and path that they've chosen. But ultimately, I don't think you need to have a software development background to be the most senior person within the tech function.
Correct. I agree with that. I've worked with somebody who's CTO. I won't name names, but they're a data background, you know. But even that background is only been last 5 years as data's become more prominent. So they're in that role because of that, really. Not because they went to university and got a software engineering background degree and have been working 15 years in writing code. It's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, they get value from sales or bringing in customers or whatever. They still got a good value to the business, right?
Yeah, if you understand fundamental concepts of software engineering, like David mentioned, right, you can articulate what is required and have your team below you who are the experts that you put together to go put that vision into place. Yeah.
Cool. Guys, we've actually come to the end of the questions. So unless anybody feels like they want to take themselves off mute and fire one last question across, I think we're pretty much done here.
Perfect. Well, thanks for everyone that has joined. I hope you got what you wanted out of it. If you do have any further questions, obviously the guys will be available on the meetup chat, and we'll put the links in there. Massive thank you to you guys as well, Davy, Fame, Mike, for joining us and being such good speakers. And we hope you enjoyed yourselves as well.
Yeah, it's been great fun. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah.
Perfect. We will be having another meetup at some point in September. We're just working around the speakers on that and the actual subject matter. But if you guys do have any suggestions, anyone you think is going to be a good speaker, or any subject matters that you think are prominent and that you want to have a conversation about, please do send us messages either directly or in the meetup group as well. But thank you, Joe, as well, for helping me host this, and we'll hopefully see you guys soon.
Well, mate, Premolata, did you have something you wanted to say quickly?
I was going to say, I have sent you LinkedIn request. Please connect with me so that we can take that conversation forward, the mentorship conversation forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Cheers,
Oh,
everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
See you later.
Yeah.